Hello, welcome to BookSquirrel and my review of Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. BookSquirrel. I don't know. Monstrilio is the third book that I'll be reviewing of my 20 top-ranked horror book TBR list. That's such a long thing to say, which means that I do plan on reviewing 17 other books on that list. So if you want to see what other books are on there, I'll put the link in the comments. To apply a critical eye to this book, I will be using my ACORN system, which looks at the topics of approach, characters, originality, readability, and narration for a potential total of 100 ACORNs. How will Monstrilio do? Well, let's find out. First, a little bit about the book. It was originally published in March of 2023. I do have a paperback edition, which means that this was published in January of 2024. So pretty new. And in total, it's 324 pages. Okay, here's the blurb. After her son dies, Magos carves out a small piece of his lung to save for herself. Acting on fierce maternal instinct and the dubious logic of an old folktale, she nurtures the lung until it gains sentience. Growing into the carnivorous little Monstrilio she keeps hidden within the walls of her decaying childhood home in Mexico City. But despite her best efforts to turn the monster she created into a man, Monstrilio's innate impulses threaten to destroy his fragile second chance at life. A meditation on grief, acceptance, and the monstrous sides of love and loyalty, Gerardo Samano Cordova's ambitious debut spans the globe from Brooklyn to Berlin, offering a cathartic and precise portrait of being human. And now we begin. Approach. I haven't really kept a whole lot of secrets when it comes to my perspective of this book. I have been so excited to read this. I put it in the super hyped tier on my tier list video because it resonated so much with me. The blurb hits so many areas that I want in a book. A little dark, a little weird, a little psychological, philosophical. And I had also heard before picking up that this is a queer story, so it made me even more excited because I want more of that representation in my reading and on this channel. And then looking at the cover, I mean, holy buckets, this is so cute. Look at this little dude. Look at this little dude, okay? There's charm in the little dude. There's abstract in the shapes, the colors. I'm obsessed with this cover. This cover spoke to me. Nothing about it was deterring me. Everything was inviting my mind in. Who I am, what I resonate with. It all seemed to be there from the beginning. The title's really cool, Monstrilio, like all of it it just spoke to me so much, okay? If you're already intrigued by this book, I would say maybe stop here and just start reading because one thing I will say in this review right off the jump is that Gerardo is incredibly consistent. What he's promising you here is what you will get. And I feel like even this abstract cover is representative accurately of the story. This is one of those instances where I feel like whatever marketing team he had knew what they were doing. Because I had been so excited about the book, I did get obviously I got a physical copy here. And I tell you, this cover has like a lovely bite to it. It's got a lovely texture to it. And it's just all the more fitting. It just made this experience even more special. Really glad this is a part of my little library. And then I started reading the book and man, I mean, he delivers the premise right from the get. You don't have to wait. Instantly, it's incredibly haunting. It's very poetic. It's very human. And we jump right into the idea of loss and coping with that, processing it, and the things that our mind will do to convince us to not let go. And for the first time on this channel's history, I had no complaints about anything. Not visually, not contextually, nothing. It might be no surprise, but I give Monstrilio's approach a 20 out of 20 acorns. Characters. To me, Monstrilio has a wonderful cast of characters. There's a nice core group that you stick with throughout the book, and then you also have additional characters that add flavor and are maybe not around for the whole time, maybe are not the main focus, but every character in this book, for the most part, really feels to play a role. And one of my favorite aspects of this book is that the characters are deep, they evolve, and you really get a deep dive not only into their own psyches, but you get a deep dive into their various relationships with people. And I found myself relating, for the most part, with almost everybody in different ways. Gerardo doesn't try to make any character perfect. He shows flaws. He shows what I consider to be very realistic, where you have an outside expression and then you have an internal expression. There's a way that we can be true to ourselves, and at the same time, there's a way that we need to operate within the world. And this is not lost on his story or on any of his characters, really. And at the same time, he shows evolution. He shows characters actually developing. He shows changes in who people are, in lessons they've learned, and because of that, the story itself evolves. There's just so much progression that he puts in this small 324-page book. As a writer myself, I feel like I really learned something about characters in this book, and not just characters, but man, just how to present, how to make things feel real and deep. Like, he's such an expert. This is his first book, and I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. But yeah, if you're looking for representations of perfectly good and perfectly bad, read a basic book. I don't know. This one's not going to give that to you. You're going to find yourself liking these characters. You're going to find yourself disliking these characters because nobody's perfect. You're going to find yourself leaving this book feeling like you know these people. Some of the deepest character development I've read. So it might not be a surprise for me to say that I give Monstrilio's characters 20 out of 20 acorns as well. I do not have any complaints, period. Originality. I'm applying a very subjective lens to all of these topics, but originality seems to be one that's so specific to the reader. I do feel like there are some stories that are similar to this in a way. It is a monster story. It reminds me of Pan's Labyrinth. It reminds me a little bit of Edward Scissorhands. And so there are some parallels that you can draw. But I tell you, the fact alone that this is such a queer story, to me, really takes it there. It really takes it to someplace new. The fact that this is an international story. It takes place in Mexico City. It takes place in New York. It takes place in Berlin. And Gerardo does such a good job of really showing you these places. He includes culture, he includes the food, he includes the locations, he includes the plants, and all of these combined into an experience that I hadn't really had before. If you are someone who knows what it is to be on the outside, which a lot of us do know, for one reason or another, this book is going to speak to you on that in that way about what do we do with ourselves if the world doesn't really want to welcome who we are, and how much are we willing to sacrifice ourselves to fit in. And I think that that's a story that's really important to be talking about right now. And I have to say this too, it's not just the fact that this book includes queer stories that makes it original, it's the fact that he normalizes everything. Monstrilio himself is very much the outsider, right? He's a monster. But the queer people in this book, they are represented as completely normal people. That is something that is so needed in queer stories. I feel like a lot of times when queer people are added to stories, there's a whole, look at this queer person over here. Aren't they different? Aren't they interesting? Has to be pointed out as something that isn't usual or is uncomfortable for people. And yet this story, the queerness is probably one of the most normalized aspects of these people's lives. And I love that so much because it's authentic and it's true to actually lived queer experiences. And it's just really, really, really refreshing for me to read something that doesn't call attention to it like there needs to be some kind of apology for it existing. So if you've been looking for a queer story that is normalized and that also still looks at what it means to be an outcast and be authentic to yourself, man, check this out. So because of that, I give Monstrilio 20 out of 20 acorns in originality. Readability. For the most part, I have to say this book is an incredibly lovely read. I read this book so fast. It was like going down a slide for me. I just kept reading. I wanted to read more. It flew by. And it's because primarily the readability of this book is very, very high. However, two things did kind of make me have to stop a couple of times and reorient myself. The first one is just in the language barrier, and I'm not actually deducting points for this, okay? I want to say that right out the bat. There's a good amount of little just references for foods, for plants, for locations in Mexico City, in Berlin, that are obviously not in English. They're in Spanish or German. And I looked at those moments as opportunities to learn. Whenever I would get to one of those moments, I would look up what this was, and it added so much to the experience of this book for me. And so Monstrilio acted as a window for me in those areas. Did it slow down my reading a little bit? Yes. Was it by my choice? And did it enrich my experience? Yes, yes, yes. The points that I did deduct primarily have to do with the structure of the book. The book is split into 4 chunks, and each chunk is told by a different narrator. And what I find to be interesting is that even though there are multiple perspectives, this book is told in first person. So there were a couple of times where I'd be reading, a perspective had just kind of shifted into a new narrator, and the word I would be there. And I had to stop a couple of times to say, okay, wait, who is this I again? And for the most part, that issue really happened at the first transition of narrators. By the time I got to the third narrator and then the fourth narrator, I got much more used to it. But for the most part, there were a couple of hiccups that really did kind of make me stop, and yet it's still a minor complaint. In addition to that, some of the themes are a bit intense. I think Gerardo does a really good job in not like throwing things in your face. He presents some disturbing topics, but he reflects on them in very human ways, in very poetic ways, in thoughtful ways. He doesn't just throw something intense at you for shock value. Everything has a purpose, and so the intensity I didn't deduct points on either. I wasn't scared throughout this book. I'm starting to think that maybe I can't be scared by books. But overall, this book really has a high degree of readability, and the writing is just so easy to consume. To me, this book actually is very accessible, very readable. With just those little hiccups, I did deduct just a couple points for that. So in the end, I give Monstrilio's readability 18 out of 20 acorns. Narration. I already did mention that this book is told through first person. There is a little prologue in the beginning of the book that's actually told in third person, which I found to be really intriguing. And then it switches over to first person for the rest of the story, and first person past tense. Gerardo's style is very haunting. It's very colorful. It's precise without losing feeling. And he litters these little pockets of color and vibrancy and flavor throughout every scene. And overall, his narration really feels like a waltz between life and death, humanity and the inner beast. It's so artfully done. And another thing that I really loved about Gerardo's writing is that he will show you the promise right away. He doesn't string you along, and he will then deliver without you having to invest too much before you get to a payoff. And as promises evolved, as payoffs happen, the story itself evolves. Gerardo Samano Cordova really understands progression. One critique that I did have is in that the ending felt a little abrupt. I didn't dislike the ending. I thought it was a great ending to the book. Personally, I would have liked to have the bridge between the story and the ending be fleshed out just a little bit more. Obviously, Gerardo knows how to provide a story and how to tell a story, and who am I to say that it would have been better if he had fleshed it out or not? It's just one critique that I had. And ultimately, when I look at my reaction to that, it's because I just want more. If this was a 7-course meal, by the way, there is a 7-course meal actually mentioned in this book. If this truly was a 7-course meal, I would not want it to end. I want it to be a 28-course meal. I just want to keep going. Gerardo Samano Cordova is now one of my absolute favorite authors. I'm so jealous, but good for him. This guy is going places. And I really just can't wait for more books from him. I give Monstrilio 19 out of 20 acorns for narration. If the ending had just been fleshed out just a little bit more, it would have been a 20. And you know what? I still can't really complain. This book is amazing. All right, so in total, I give Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova a 97 out of 100 acorns. My first book in the 90s. I would recommend this book to anyone. I'm covering up his face. Even the story about a monster, Gerardo has captured so much humanism. There's something that they say every now and then in this book where they look at whether an event that happens fits a life or doesn't fit. And I tell you right now, this book fits me. To me, this book is a true gem. BookSquirrel from the past here. I finished reading Monstrilio earlier today. I'm going to be recording my review tomorrow morning, but I really wanted to do some more reading tonight still, or at least know what my next book is. So I'm choosing a little early. So let's spin the wheel and see what my next book from my horror TBR list will be. Here we go. Just please not another 1,000-page book or 900-page book. Something shorter. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I think that's Ray Bradbury, right? Yeah, Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. All right, that'll be the next book. I was partially hoping for We Have Always Lived in the Castle for one reason, and that's because it's literally mentioned in Monstrilio. And I thought, wouldn't that be crazy? I almost landed on it. That was actually really kind of crazy. But I'm really excited about Something This Way Comes. So that'll be my next review, and I am excited for that book. We will see how I feel about that when we get to it. Hope you all have a lovely and wonderful whatever, and until next time, bye. BookSquirrel. I don't know.